Hi everyone, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to go through the basics of performance testing, only the theory part in this session. And in the next week's session, I'm going to go through the how automation part of performance tests on how we can automate performance tests for microservices using Gatling tool. So let's go into the theory part now. So for any kind of performance testing, you need NFRs. NFR is non-functional requirements from your architect or technical project manager. So once you have NFRs, so for example, they have told you like in 2020, your application needs to handle 150 requests per second on heavy sides. Heavy side. When I say heavy side, that's the maximum amount of requests that your application will receive in 2020. And also you might have specifications like your response time should not exceed 2 seconds or 30 seconds based on your application needs basically. And it is different for each and every service. I'm just only saying the examples here. And also they might give you the specifications for mean and standard deviations as well, like this should not exceed 2 seconds, or standard deviation should not exceed 1 second, something like that. So once you have those requirements, you need to formulate the load profile for your application. Normally how you can do load testing is, so initially you start with like uh, less number of requests, and then you slowly ramp it up to 150 requests per second and see how your application is behaving with that amount of load. So let's say you have done your load testing for that, and you have done the profiling, and you have the outcome for load test results. And so once you have the results, what you need to look for is, so your report will have response times and mean standard deviations for each and every endpoint that you have configured for load test. So once you have response times and mean and standard deviation, you need to compare them with your NFRs, and like whether your mean is exceeding the specified time or expected time, and if your response times are exceeding the specified time, then you need to report it. And also there is not only the response times, you also need to understand CPU and memory usage for your application. So let's say your application has been, I mean, we use Kubernetes. So let's say your Kubernetes pod has been allocated 3 GB memory and one CPU, and you have two pods, and each pod has been allocated 3 GB and one CPU. And so you ran this 3 hour load test, and your CPU usage is quite high, and in the middle you had like two restarts because your memory usage has gone up, or CPU usage has gone up. So your report will show failures. You need to understand whether they are because of the application, I mean, because of the bugs in the application, or because of the resources. So sometimes it can be due to the bugs in the application, where application starts serving 500s because you'll be I mean you'll be performing the request parallelly, right? So there might be some concurrency issues with your application. So the test might have failed for that reason. Or sometimes your application is using more than what it's requested, like CPU goes more than one, and memory usage goes more than 3 GB. So you need to understand all these things from your report and from your logs and the CPU usage and memory usage. Because we use OpenShift, that gives us nice graphs for CPU and memory usage, and we can easily find out if application is exceeding certain amount of memory or certain amount of CPU. And also you need to understand number of reads and writes done by your application. So uh, those are called as IO operations, I think. So you need to understand that as well. And also it depends on your service as well. So so you need to do all these things when you have the report. So that is basically the load test. And next thing is the stress test. So when you are doing a stress test, that is all about understanding what is your application's breakpoint. So at what load your application gives up and it says I can't serve anymore. So yeah, so for stress testing, what you need to do is you need to ramp up, keep on ramping up your number of requests and see where your application starts breaking stuff. This is um, purely to understand the breakpoint for your application. So that's stress test. And next thing is soak test. Soak test is same like load test, but you do soak test for longer periods. So let's say you have done load test for 3 hours. Soak test will be like 6 to 8 hours, or sometimes it's even 24 hours, 48 hours. It is based on your application needs as well. So sometimes, like when your let's say you have a media application, and you might have box sets release happening, and so during that time, like for 2 or 3 days, you might have heavy load on your system. So that is the reason, based on the applications, you might need to increase your soak test period as well, like 48 hours. It can be 72 hours as well, based on the application. But for us, in the current project, we do like 8 hours of soak test. So this soak test is basically to understand whether your application is performing well throughout that 8 hour period. And so if you sometimes you might notice, like after 3 hours of the soak test, application's response times increases, and also it starts serving 504s, 503s. I mean, it could be due to the memory leaks that you have in your system. So you need to understand the memory leaks, if there are any memory leaks for your service, and if that is the reason it's causing failures during your soak test. So soak test is like, when you have load for longer hours, how your application is performing, and if the memory usage is very bad or very good, based, and your CPU usage is good or bad, you need to understand all those things. And mainly memory leaks will be identified by these soak tests. So hope you understood the theory of performance testing. In the next session, I'm going to show you how we can automate all these three tests, like load tests. So maybe I might not be able to show you all these three in one session, but I'll start with load test in the initial session, and using Gatling tool, how we can automate, and what are the dependencies required and all. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.